Hi everyone, welcome to Wendy in my kitchen. You'll see Wendy's in a minute, as we're going to go through a few a couple of gluten-free breads, and I'm doing a wrap, gluten-free wrap, and some crackers as well. So I've got a few things for you today. If you've got any questions, as always, please use the chat down the bottom there. It is just the two of us, so we're going to be juggling between us. Everybody else was busy today, so we're the people that choose to eat. Well, Wendy eats gluten-free. I choose to eat gluten-free, and so we've got a little bit more knowledge on this subject than the others, but they all were either working or had other things on. So we are working the chat and admitting people and everything ourselves. So bear with us, please. As I said, please feel free to pop any questions into the chat. So we are making today, let me have a look, we're making sunflower and sesame seed rolls, falafel crackers, a quick pumpkin loaf, and some grain-free wraps. And to start with, we will pop over to Wendy. So I will spotlight her, and she's going to start us off. Thanks, Wendy.
Hi everyone, welcome to my kitchen. I am making some gluten-free sunflower and sesame rolls today. Really quick and easy recipe. There's no yeast, it doesn't need proving, so we all just basically put in the ingredients in and mixing and putting in the oven. So let's start. And my machine's switched off, so that's not really a good start, is it?
Happens to the best of us, Wendy.
Oh, I know, I wasn't watching it. So this recipe actually uses a banana flour rather than your normal gluten-free plain or self-raising flour. And this can be found at most grocery stores, your Coles, your Woolies. It is a little bit more expensive than the regular gluten-free flour, but the taste of these rolls is really yummy. And you'll probably get two serves or two batches of this recipe from this packet. It's also mixed with some psyllium husk, which is good for your fibre intake. I'm just going to my recipes. It's really hard reading upside down. Here we go. So in my week. So we've saved it. Let's have a think. Okay, so first of all, we're going to preheat the oven to 160 degrees Celsius, which I've already done, and line a baking tray. This recipe you can actually have, you can make different shapes with the dough, so it doesn't have to be a round roll. It can actually be like a French baguette style. So I'm going to add in 70 grams. Again, this is or in a regular supermarket, and it's quite reasonably priced. Whoops, I missed a step then. Banana flour, so 140 grams of banana flour. 40 grams of white, hang on, let me say this right, Mandy, chia seeds, there we go. You can get a black version. I've got the white version. If you did only have the black version, I can't see it would make a difference to the recipe apart from maybe alter the taste slightly, but you certainly just use what's in your pantry. 100 grams of sunflower seeds and 40 grams of sesame seeds. So it is quite a seedy roll, and it has lots of flavour in there. We're also going to go for some flaxseed, so 40 grams of this. Alternative name is linseed. And it's just going to now mix it together or grill it together just for a few seconds. So just bear with me with the noise, just for 8 seconds. Now it mills it so it's a nice consistency. It doesn't actually grind all the seeds down, so it still is part of the texture. I don't know whether the camera will pick that up for you, but I certainly at my end can still see some flaxseed in there. You can see the speckles of dark and some sesame seeds. 30 grams of honey. So instead of using sugar or anything, we're using the honey. I've just used some regular honey from Woolies. I have pre-weighed everything, so that's why I'm not bothering too much about the scales just for today. 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder. 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. I make sure I get the organic one that has the mother in the bottom, just so you're getting those extra nutrients. Now, when you do pour this in, it will start to froth the ingredients because you've got the baking powder in there. It's just the reaction that you have. So don't worry too much about the bubbles it's creating. And 450 grams of water. Three eggs. Again, when you're cracking the eggs, try not to do it against the bowl, just so that it doesn't upset the scales on the machine. I prefer just to crack it on the bench or on the lid. And these eggs I've got are quite large today. I guess it wouldn't matter too much what size, it actually doesn't specify in there. And 20 grams of extra virgin olive oil. And this is one thing I haven't weighed out, so I'll just pour this in. There we go. As I say, it's a very quick and easy recipe. And we're going to cook next. And for 5 seconds, it's going to mix a little bit more. This is making a wet dough, so it is very sticky. I'm just going to have a quick look at that. I'm going to mix it a little bit longer. So I'm just going to turn it down to about 3 seconds.
It's one of the great things about the TM6 that you can go back and you can alter times, you know, to whatever's required.
Okay. Might just give that a little stir with the spatula. Okay. Now it says allowed to stand for 2 minutes. So Mandy, do you want me to come back to me, or do you want me just?
Well, you can. You keep. Well, I'll chat whilst it's doing that.
Okay,
right?
that's all right.
All right. I know it gets a little bit noisy, and I know we were doing something the other day, and no one could hear me at all because it was kneading. So we'll do a little tag team on that. So I had some information I was going to share with you a bit later on, but I might as well share some of it now. So I've got this sheet which I've made up, which I will send out to all of you. So, you know, when we're looking at gluten-free flours, you can hear about all these different things. You know, there's corn flour, we all know about corn flour, there's potato starch, there's tapioca flour. And they're, you know, sort of sometimes I think, well, can I replace one with the other? You know, I might not have one, I might have one in my cupboard, but not the other. So I had a little bit of a look online, and I've got substitutes of tapioca flour is actually the title. So if you want to substitute tapioca flour with corn flour, it's 1 tablespoon of corn flour instead of 2 tablespoons of tapioca, because corn flour, as we know, you know, it's used in a lot of things. So for thickening, it's a really good thickening agent. So you don't need as much of that if you're substituting it for tapioca flour. And I think, Wendy, are you good now?
I think the next step is actually just to knead for a minute. So I might let you keep talking and put myself on mute.
Yeah, sure. Great. Okay. It talks about cassava flour. Now, I actually haven't seen cassava flour, but basically you can use it the same as you can with tapioca flour. Potato starch. So you decrease the amount by 25%. And a lot of these flours, you don't replace the whole thing as a gluten-free flour. You might use some rice flour, mix it in with, with your potato starch or whatever. It's rarely just the potato starch. I know we have arrowroot flour in the gluten-free, the Brazilian cheese puffs. That's just all arrowroot flour, but then they all puff up. But there's a lot of recipes, with breads where you do need to mix the flour. You can't just go, yeah, okay, I'm just going to substitute with a whole lot of corn flour. You do need to mix them. And what it says with the potato starch is you decrease the amount of the, so if it said tapioca flour in the recipe and you've only got potato starch, you decrease the potato starch by 25%. And the other flour that you're using in that recipe increase to cover that 25%, okay? Arrowroot, you can do 1 for 1. And rice flour. So it has a mild flavor and it has stronger thickening properties. So you just do half the amount of the tapioca flour required. So if you had to have 100 grams of tapioca flour, you just use 50 grams of rice flour. So that is that's one little bit of information. I've got some more stuff on flours, but we'll probably go back to Wendy because she must be just about ready. And we'll come back to this later.
Yes, so I'll show you the end result. So there is the dough.
It looks fantastic.
It smells lovely. It is quite a wet dough, but not too wet that, it won't shape into a ball or a baguette. So just a little tip with the dough, works as well with gluten-free as with normal. Just upside down with the bowl and you're just turning the little cog of the blades at the bottom there, and it almost has come out. That's a pretty good effort there. And so, as I say, this one is best eaten on the day, or you can freeze it in the freezer up to 1 month. I've had one of the children taste test it already today. It's gluten-free, and she absolutely loved it. So she's good. So as you can see, it's not too wet. So what I'm going to do is just roll it into a log. It does say about 8 serves, 8 portions, but again, it just depends how large or small you want your portions to be. So today I've already done some rolls. So I may just cut this into 3. I may do some little French baguettes and see how they turn out for everybody, and you can have a look at those and see if it works well. Have you done this one yet, Maddie? Or
I've done that recipe quite a few times. I really like it. I know Kelly's had them before, and they were taste tested by Hugo, who's now 13.
Yeah,
and he thought they were pretty good too. But he's got an amazing palate too.
Okay, so I'm just going to roll them a little bit. Now, because I am changing the shape, I will have to watch the cooking time, because the cooking time is set for the rolls. So I'll try and get them to the similar height as what I did the rolls earlier. And the beauty about this one is the toppings you can actually alter. So I've got a combination of poppy seed and sesame seed, or if you just wanted to do one or the other, you could, or you could leave them without anything on as well. So as I say, there's no proving with this. It's so quick and easy. Could basically make them in the morning and still have them for school lunches if it cooled down enough. All right, so I've got some sesame and poppy seeds together. I'll just put those on one. I actually found with the rolls, I was dipping them in these little dishes from the mix shop, and they actually worked quite well. That way the seeds didn't go everywhere. And I'll just do a plain poppy seed one as well. Right, they're going to be ready for the oven. And we'll see how we go. That's really good. And I've just going to wash my hands, and then I'll be back shortly.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. We'll come back to me. All right, so don't you love it? A lot of the gluten-free dough is a little bit messy, but it's all good. All right, so I'm going to start with falafel crackers. Now, can you guys see that screen all right? Is that all right? Or I can put a blind down and get a little bit glare off. Is that all right? Can I get a thumbs up from someone? That's okay. Down. Okay. That's better, isn't it? Okay. So what I'm going to start with, and I've got my notes hidden behind the blind, here we go, are the falafel crackers. And I have put them into my week. So I'm just going to literally hit the hamburger, as we say, on the top left-hand side, go into my week, and falafel crackers. So these are fantastic because they are gluten-free, obviously, because we're doing a gluten-free class. But you know, gluten-free crackers can really set you back a bit. So these are super simple to make. Preheat my oven to 180. I'm going to do that. Okay. 2 pieces of baking paper. So with the baking paper, this is for rolling out. I use the compostable brown Glad Bake. Because obviously it's going to compost rather than, you know, normal, you know, what do you call it? Baking paper just has to go into, doesn't decompose at all. It's not recyclable, it has to go into the rubbish. So please look for compostable. And that's because we need to roll these crackers out between. Set aside a baking tray. All done. All right, here we go. Yeah. Okay, a whole lot of things in here, but the first thing I need is my garlic clove. So I've got one little garlic clove in here, and so organised with all my bowls. I've got too many around now. I'm going to just chop the garlic clove. It is generally 3 seconds, speed 7, so we'll just do that. Thank you all Thermomix owners, so you all know what a great job this does. So just scraping down. So that's all in there. Next, now I've got a whole lot of things that I've weighed out in here. So you can't see the chia seeds. They're somewhere in there though. Oh, there are some in that corner down there, some black ones. I have 50 grams of sunflower seeds. They're in here. I have 50 grams of pepitas. Now these are really interesting. So they are pumpkin seeds. These came from the Ovens Valley, and there is actually a pepita farm up here and up there. And they're really big. They're organic pepita seeds, and they're really delicious. I've got my sesame seeds over here in this corner. I've got the flax seeds, which Wendy's already spoken about. And then I've also got, probably hidden in here, I've got my ground cumin, I've got my turmeric, I've got oregano, and I had salt in there somewhere, but it's all got a bit mixed up now. So all of those are going in. Hang on. Yeah, salt. My lid on. Okay, 20 seconds on speed out. So that was just really milling all the seeds into a bit of a flour. And if you already had, you know, any of those things as a flour, obviously you just leave them out at this stage and then add them in. So there it is. Smells amazing. Smell of cumin. 35 grams of water. Well, I don't know if you guys do this, but you know your measuring cup, it is actually a measure. It has a 50 ml and 100 ml measure, and it's got the little pouring spout. So when I'm just need a small amount of water, I generally use this. Okay. 25 grams of olive oil, just use some of this. Okay. Now, at least I'm consistent, 1 gram over each thing. And pop the lid back on again. 20 seconds on speed 4. All right, so it says to now transfer the dough to a silicone bread mat or a work surface. And I know what I've got to do next is just roll it out between 2 bits of my compostable paper so it's thin, and then I'm going to cut it into just cut it into shape. So I'm not going to pop it on the silicone bread mat. I've got 1 piece of paper there. And I'm going to pop this on there. As Wendy said, you can just twiddle the bottom of the blades on the underside here to get everything out. That's done a good job. Shape into a ball. I'm actually going to do it more into a bit of a rectangle, I think, because I didn't want to roll it out. My second sheet on top. Some of that. So it says, put the other bit of baking paper at the top and roll it out with a rolling pin. As I mentioned before, you find a lot of the gluten-free recipes for crackers, wraps, any of those sorts of things, it suggests that you do roll out between 2 pieces of paper because it does get, they are generally a stickier dough. All right, here we go in here. All right, you actually see some of the oil pooling down that end there. All right, that'll do. And now what I'm going to use, basically I have to put it onto the tray in a moment, but then it says suggest you use a knife to cut it. But I've got this, which is the cracker roller from the mix shop. And I love this because it's, you know, it just makes nice looking crackers. So I'm just going to literally go down here. And you'll see at the end, you can just break them up. After they're baked. There we go. I don't know if you can see the markings on there. It's a little bit hard to see, but they are already chopped up. And I'm going to pop them on tray. Just literally drag the paper onto the baking tray. And I'm going to pop them in the oven. All right, now let's just see how long they've got to cook for. "25 minutes. Now, does someone feel like timing 25 minutes for me, please? All right. So that's the falafel cracker. So a really simple, again, you know, as Wendy said, her dough was really simple. That's really, thank you, Wendy. That's a really simple recipe too, and you know, so easy just to roll out like that. All right, so the next thing I'm going to just show you is another quick loaf that needs no rising. I have got one that I made yesterday, which I will show you a bit later on, which does require a rise, but these ones are so quick and easy. It's fantastic. So just if you didn't know, the 3 little dots here next to the next button, I can click on there and I can cancel my recipe and go yes. So I add that recipe, and I'm coming back in here to my week. Another bowl. And going to make this one. So this is a quick squash, rosemary and Parmesan bread, and it's really delicious, I can tell you, because we had some for lunch. It is an American recipe. Better put the oven on for this one. Okay, and again, it's asked me to line a tray with baking paper, but this one I'm using my very old, well-used Thermomix. Now, this is one of the host rewards that you can get when you host. This, along with the one that you use for bread proving. As you can see, it is very well used. It just keeps going in the oven all the time. Perfectly clean, just fantastic because it is reusable. All right, now I'm going to pop in 100 grams of Parmesan cheese. So I've got my Parmesan cheese, and the next thing is some rosemary. So they're going in. One of the great things, isn't it? If you've got a few herbs in your garden, just go out and pick them up. 10 seconds on speed 9. And I'm just going to put a couple of teaspoons out of here, because that actually ends up going on the top. And I'm sure you're all familiar with this, but just a reminder, I was actually showing the Thermomix to someone this morning, and they were saying how they always bought their cheese ready grated. Well, ready grated cheese in a packet has anti-caking agent in it, so you're much better off getting your block of cheese and grating it as you need it. So we're very lucky to be able to do that. So I'm going to pop a couple of little teaspoons out from there. That'll do. All right, moving on. 200 grams of butternut pumpkin. Oh, it's not an American, it must be an English recipe. That's what it is, because I'm still in grams, it's not in ounces. So there's my pumpkin. Pop that in there. Again, we're going to pop the lid on and just chop that up. And again, just notice, just a reminder that when you go forward to the next step and you take your lid off, you do have to tear your scales, otherwise you're going to get yourself in all sorts of trouble. Now, it's 250 grams of self-raising flour. In one of the books that we've got, which is called Good Food Gluten Free, which is on Cookie Do, it does give you some ways to make your own flours. This one, I have to confess, is an organic one from Woolies, just their self-raising gluten-free flour. It's a very fine flour. Looks a bit more, we're talking about flours before, it's very fine, looks more like corn flour, but I'm sure it's not all of that. In fact, I probably should have read the packet before I chucked it. But anyway, there we go, that's all going in. Remember to do that next time I buy that. The salt. Salt. 40 grams of pumpkin seeds. Now, another little trick here too. So it says 40 grams of pumpkin seeds, but the scales haven't actually come up. So again, I hit these 3 little dots over here, and I get my scales up. And yeah, these are my beautiful pumpkin seeds from the Ovens Valley. So they're going in. Two large eggs, broke down a bit earlier. So it's my eggs going in. $20 grams of milk. Oops, 25 grams of milk. Put my lid back on again. Now, so Wendy, this is where you return the favour, and we'll come to you. I don't know, you can talk about, you can start on a bit of cookie dough or something like that if you want, because this is going to need for 3 minutes and you won't be able to hear anything from this end.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with everybody. I've not done this one before, so let's see how we go. Okay, can everyone see my cookie dough? Yep, okay. So with the cookie dough, we've got the recipe collections. We can also search for gluten-free just in the search tool as well. I'll just put in gluten-free for you just as an example. And it will come up with lots of suggestions. So anything from cake through to making your own flour, as Mandy mentioned. The gluten-free pasta. We've got a gluten-free Christmas pudding. There is a recipe for gluten-free hot cross buns that I have seen. So there's different ways of searching for the recipes. If you just want something specific, you can just type in the search bar. So let's just go gluten-free bread. You'll notice with my filters actually up here, I've got Australia, the UK, the US and Canada in there, as well as English for the language. I've also got include Thermomix blade cover in. This was introduced, I think, last week or the week before. And I have noticed that if you do not have that in your filters, you will not see some recipes. So it's really a good tip for you to add that to your filters. Otherwise, you'll be missing heaps, and we don't want that. Another alternative you can also do with the collections is actually add in every country, and you can actually Google Translate. Just copy into Google Translate, and that will give you the instructions in English. However, it will still be in the foreign language on your machine. So you just have to cross-reference with that. So if I go up to the top here and I go gluten-free bread, and it will give me some options. So it's found 1,996. What I have discovered with cookie dough, with some of the gluten-free recipes, it's gluten-free. Now, in some countries, oats are okay by their governing body to be listed as a gluten-free product. In Australia, it's not. There's a risk of contamination, but also oats has got a very similar protein in there, similar to gluten. And if you're celiac, you must have a oat challenge test first before consuming. Otherwise, you will react as if you've been poisoned by gluten. For those that are intolerant, again, I would recommend having the test. If it's just a preference that you like gluten-free, obviously, if it contains oats, then that will be fine. So there are some US recipes on here. It does say gluten-free, but actually when you read the ingredients, it's not gluten-free by ingredient for Australia. So if you're cooking for a friend, or if you have Wendy coming over for dinner and she's celiac, and you go, lovely, I'll pick a recipe off cookie dough, just make sure it doesn't have oats in. Otherwise, she'll get a very upset tummy. So as you can see, the gluten-free banana bread actually is an interesting one. I just substitute the flour in the normal cookie dough banana bread, and it works out perfectly fine. So you can also do that. The gluten-free focaccia is lovely. And also the naan bread, the regular naan bread, I've swapped that out for just the flour, gluten-free flour, and that works out remarkably well too. That's a favourite in our house. This gluten-free fruit and nut loaf is amazing. Mandy gave me a sample of that at her house a couple of weeks ago. That's a really nice one for an afternoon tea. With the recipes, and actually this gluten-free chicken and leek pie, I know it's not bread, but the pastry, that's also yummy. If we go back up to my recipes, you can choose which recipes you like and save them in a folder at the side. You'll notice that I've got here gluten-free bread recipes. I've just taken those off Cookadoo and created my own collection. If you're not sure how to do that,
Wendy, sorry to interrupt, but we might come back to me and come back to you with that just a little bit later on, if that's all right.
Oh, good. Thanks, Mandy.
Thank you. If you can stop sharing the screen, and we can.
There we go.
Perfect. Thank you very much. All right, let me find me. Where am I? There, I think. Yeah. All right. So my mixture has finished kneading. Just going to show you what it looks like. So it is quite sloppy, and I have got a whole lot of mixture around the blades. So who can tell me how I can get that off the blades? Pop it in the chat. Yes, I knew you'd know that one, Kelly. All right, so absolutely turbo. So turbo with turbo centrifugal force pushes everything off the blades onto the inside of the bowl. All right, so I'm going to actually go onto there, which is just brought me back to the home page, but my recipe is saved. I'm going to hit turbo. And turbo is the one function that until you get out of it, it will not release the lid. So I'm just going to click back into my recipe here. And you will see that my blades are now clean. So I've just got to scrape down the rest, just pushing everything down to the bottom of the bowl. I think all my customers know about turbo. It's one of my favourite functions. I love it. All right. So I'll put that on there, and then it actually says wet your hands. Now, I don't know if anyone was on our bread class on the non-gluten-free bread class on Thursday night, but that's one of the things that Irene said. It's really tempting when a dough is sticky to add more flour, but it's not the right thing for the dough. The best thing to do is either oil or wet your hands and then shape it. So I'm just going to wet my hands and just shape this. So it just actually tells you just to make it into a bit of a circle like that. And then I'm going to just pop this cheese over the top, the remainder of the cheese and the rosemary. Now, it's really good when you live close to someone else with a Thermomix. So Kelly and I often, we are neighbours across the road, and we often share things. So I have made one of these already today, which I'm going to show you a little bit later on, but this one's going to be baked and it'll come across warm. All right. So that's a really super simple bread. And the other thing I'm going to show you is a wrap. Now, a lot of the gluten-free wraps, it's sometimes it can be hard to find a really good gluten-free wrap. And this one is by Fiona Hoskin. So she used to be a Thermomix. Oh, thanks, Wendy. Oh, we'll just check them though. Yeah, they do need a little bit more. So thank you for that. So Fiona, she used to be a Thermomix consultant. She is doing a nutrition course at the moment, and she has a website. So it's just called Fiona Hoskin. And she has got a lot of gluten-free recipes up there. And this is her, it's actually called a beetroot wrap. And I will send this out in the email. It says a beetroot wrap, but she's a friend of mine, and I know that I can actually substitute the beetroot with spinach. So in the recipe, there's 100 grams of raw beetroot, and I can substitute that with 50 grams of spinach. just remember I need boiling water, so I'm going to put my kettle on and then we'll come back and get this recipe going. So I'll be doing this one manually. So the bread bakes for about 50 minutes, so that's plenty of time. And you'll find when you look at the recipes for gluten-free rolls and breads, quite a few of them actually ask for boiling water in the recipe. So I've got my kettle going there. Hopefully you can still hear me. And I'm going to start off, as I said, doing this manually. And I need to have 150 grams of linseed. And in fact, what I've done is I've got my linseeds, and I also need a heaped teaspoon of salt and 150 grams of chia seeds. So I'm going to put all those in. That right. And then I'm just going to blitz those for 10 seconds on speed 10. I was about to go next, and of course I'm doing it manually, so there is no next. So used to it. So there we go, just the flour all milled up. Wait. Okay, so that's the salt, the chia seeds, and the linseed. Then I'm going to add, well, it says beetroot in the recipe, but I know I can just put spinach in. So I'm going to put the spinach in. And chop for 5 seconds on speed 10. So you don't have to set the time. If you were cooking something, you absolutely have to set the time. It will not heat without the time set. Could I use frozen spinach? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Kelly. So I'm going up to speed 10. Oh, no, I don't think I'm speed 5 for 10 seconds. I'm going speed 10 for 5 seconds. All right. We'll see what it looks like. See if it's chopped. Yep, that's all chopped up in there anyway. All right. I can't really see anything. Add remaining ingredients and mix for 10 seconds on speed 5. So the remaining ingredients, I need 2 teaspoons of organic apple cider vinegar. So what Wendy was talking about before, I don't know if you can see this, there's a whole lot of, it looks like sort of bits in the bottom there. That is part of the mother, which is what sort of creates the apple cider vinegar. So I'm putting 2 teaspoons of this in. 2 of those. 10 grams of olive oil. So I do need my scales on. And then I need 180 grams of boiling water. So in goes my water. All right, and then I'm just going to mix all of that for 10 seconds on speed 5. I'll try and get it. I will set the time this time. I might get it right. Oops, can't do that. Oh, doing. So another little tip there, you to actually, oh, they're half price. Okay, thank you. Have cookbooks. To stop the noise, you can just literally tap your screen. All right. So it's a very green looking dough, and it is hot. Yep. All right. She does say if it's too stiff, add more water or some more flax meal if it's too sticky. I think we'll be all right. So, and then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to reuse one of those bits of, I have to roll it out again between two sheets. That's the top sheet that I used for the last one, still got a bit of oil on it. And I'm going to pop this onto there. This one's come out a lot easier, not quite as sticky. All right, and I'm going to do as before, and I'm going to roll it out. Clean piece here. Oh, I've got to check those falafel crackers before I get onto that. Grab these out of the oven. Just going to let those crackers just cool for a little bit. And exactly as I did before, I'm just going to roll this dough out between the two pieces of paper. Actually, I probably should have just put half the dough on there. But anyway, well, I'll focus on one half. And I was looking at these. I pulled one of these out of the freezer yesterday to have for lunch. I'm going, oh my goodness, I did such a good job of making that round. And then I remembered I looked at the instructions in the menu, in the recipe, and she uses a really good trick. And that is, take your lid and pop it on here. And that gives you, I've got two layers in there because of the rim as well. Maybe I shouldn't have pressed as hard, but it gives you an outline, a beautiful round circle to make your wrap. So I'm just going to get a little knife. I'll do the inner one, seeing as I've already marked that out. And then what I'm going to do in a minute is I'm actually just going to, all you need to do to cook it is to pop it in a non-stick pan and just literally do it for a couple of minutes on each side. So I will do those in a minute, but super, super simple recipe. And I'll get Wendy to go, we'll go back to Wendy and she can cookie do you again, show you her collection of gluten-free bread recipes. And then we'll come back when I've got one of these made. Thanks, Wendy.
Okay. Now let me go back to my screen. Okay, there we go. And so I'm just going to go back one step actually to explore. I'm actually going to create a folder so you can, if you haven't done it before, I can walk you through that and you can see how it's done. So I'm going to put in this gluten-free bread. That looks quite nice actually, that one. I haven't tried that recipe. So it says add to collection. So I'm going to add to a collection. I'm going to create a new collection. I click create collection and then you can name it whatever you would like. So I'm just going to put Wendy's bread to try next. You can come up with creative titles, whatever you like. I tend to do some for my children. I have a folder for each of them for their favorite recipes as well. So I've now saved that into my recipes. So we go to my recipes and we go to the left and we can see it there already waiting for me to try. So that's how a good way, if you do see a recipe you do like, it's a good way to reference it and to just keep it aside in one of those folders so that you know where to find it when the time comes that you'd like to have a go. With the cookbooks, there are so many you can choose from. So we'll go back to Explore. And we shall go, oh, I've just added someone into from the waiting room, sorry. We're going to go to Explore and we're going to type in the gluten-free again. And if you see this section to the left, this is where you find the recipe collections. There's also articles you can have a look at as well. But if we go to collections, because I've put in the search gluten-free, it brings me all the gluten-free books that are there. 11 results have been found. So this is the book Mandy was mentioned earlier. I think it was this one. But you just scroll through and the recipes that you like, you can just click on the 3 dots and either bookmark or add to my collection. And I will find my folder I've just created. So it'll be down the bottom because it's W. Whoops. It's a lot easier with a mouse. So just scroll all the way down. And there we go. So yes, it says Wendy's bread to try next, but I should have put maybe Wendy's recipes to try next. And then it's also saved into that folder. So any questions on Cookadoo, feel free to put them in the chat box. Mandy and I will try our best to have a look at those for you. If you've got any recipes that you've tried that you think are successful for gluten-free, by all means share them with us as well. There are a few on the recipe collection, which you can also now import into Cookadoo if you've got the latest version 3.0. And if I just take you back to my recipes, you will see here created recipes on the left. You can also add in your own recipe. So if you've got your own recipe of a bread that you like, or a recipe, a gluten-free recipe that you like, you can actually create it yourself and put it in the folder. I've got Thermomix bread rolls. There's one I've taken from the recipe community. Gourmet crackers, mashed potato. So there's a few recipes I've already taken from the recipe community to put into my folder as well. And I've also altered a cookie dough recipe, the chunky bolognese. So yeah, there's lots of things you can do on cookie dough, not just search for a recipe. I want to try these next, the gluten-free wonton wrappers for the dumplings. I know it's not bread, but I'd love to try those just to see how they turn out. But yeah, any questions on cookie dough at all? I see there's one there in the chat. I'll just have a quick look. Oh, the gluten-free waffles. Okay, I'll try those. I haven't tried those either. Zara would love to try those. That's great. Any more questions on Cookadoo? All good for now.
All right, you can come back to me now, Wendy, or
yeah,
come back to me
I'll
now.
stop sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. I'm just interested too, Wendy. What did you change on the chunky bolognese? I
added more garlic and I added some secret zucchini because that just dissolves for the kids. And what else did I add? I added some, I think I added in some carrot, extra carrot and some mushrooms.
Right.
So it was just to save me, if the kids wanted to cook it, they could just follow those instructions rather than remembering what
So this is one of my, I've had the whole lamp. This is one of the wraps, and you can see how flexible they are. They don't crack. I've got another one cooking at the moment. So I reckon the recipe make about 6 wraps. And as I said, I had one yesterday. I can't remember what we put in it yesterday. Something. And I just, a bit of lettuce, a bit of salady stuff, and honestly can't remember what the protein was. But really good wrap. All right. We just turn this one over. They only take a couple of minutes on each side. All right. So the other thing I wanted to show you then is this is the pumpkin loaf when it's been cooked and partially consumed. But you can see it's a really beautiful looking recipe, and it is really tasty. And that's got Parmesan on top as well. So Kelly, you'll be able to taste the Parmesan cheese as well. Good thing. Yesterday, just grabbing this other one off the stove. So all I've done is non-stick pan, and I've just cooked the wrap like that. I made this one yesterday, and this is the buckwheat bread. And actually, Kelly did scored some of this this morning. Do you want to say what you thought, Kelly?
I thought it was a really good loaf of bread, and I toasted it, gave it a good toasting and with some butter, and the flavors were amazing. So at the moment, I've got no taste. Actually, my taste has been altered, so I've got quite a metallic taste in my mouth due to COVID. But the Parmesan on the bread, I think there's a bit of paprika in there as well.
Yeah,
was amazing. Yeah, so the loaf held together really well, toasted beautifully second day, and the flavor was amazing. Really, really good.
Thank you. Yeah, so it is, you know, it's a really, this has got some xanthan gum in it, but it's, you know, it's not crumbly. So the bread that Wendy mentioned before, the one with the fruit and nut that I made, it was a little bit crumbly, so I've had to play with that a little bit more. But this, absolutely, you can cut it and doesn't crumble, and yeah, obviously it toasts very well, and you know, it's great. So it's a day later. It's a really good bread.
And
so,
it wasn't cake-like either, Mandy.
Exactly.
Quite often I find they come out almost like a cake, and that didn't have the consistency like cake at all.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Thank you. All right, a few more bits and pieces to share with you. So I actually, where's this? Let's see. All these bits of paper, they're all hidden behind my blind, so you can see. All right, properties of different flours. So again, I will send this to you. So almond flour is obviously great for baking. I showed that to someone on Friday, and she couldn't believe, you know, 10 seconds you've got almond meal from almonds, which is fantastic. You can sub 1-for-1 with wheat flour, but use an extra egg, as it obviously contains more fat than wheat flour. So if you're watching your calories, anything with almond meal in it is going to have more calories. But the counter to that, I think, is that it's more nutritious too than a flour. So I would generally go for, if I was making a cake and I wanted to be gluten-free, I would generally go for a nut meal. Yes, it might have a few more calories in it, but it's got more nutrition than just flour. Buckwheat flour. So again, you can make, you know, the buckwheat groats. That's how you can buy buckwheat flour, but obviously if you've got a Thermomix, why buy the flour when you can make it? And the more processed something is, the more processed something is, then the more you're going to pay for it. So sorry, just making sure everybody was muted there. Okay, got one more to go. Mute. Okay, so yeah, so make your own flours. Don't, you know, like rice flour or anything, whatever. So if you're using buckwheat flour, it does have a nutty flavour. Also has anti-inflammatory properties. It's high in fibre and protein, which help, and it's best combined with other gluten-free flours. So remember I said a bit earlier on, it's better to combine things, just have one, you know, substitute with one type of flour, just do a bit of a mixture. Got these glasses and they're slipping down my nose and they're multifocal, so I'm either sort of, I lose focus. Sorghum, sometimes you see sorghum flour. That's high in protein and fiber, and it can actually help slow sugar absorption, balancing your blood sugar levels. Again, mixed with other gluten-free flours. Amaranth, that has a nutty flavor. It's rich in nutrients that promote brain health. Now, a really interesting thing on that, I watched something on Wednesday night. It was actually it was a library thing, and they had a lady talking about aging, and she's been doing research on women for 30 years. And one of the things she said was, it wasn't to do with this, but I'm just thinking about the brain health, because she said that the #1 killer of women is actually dementia. And one of the things that you need is vitamin D. And okay, you can get supplements. And she said, yeah, vitamin D supplements and calcium. I know we're going down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but you know, it's quite interesting. Then you can get those, but they will help with your bone density, but they don't actually help with the brain. So the way to get your vitamin D is go outside with no sunscreen on and bare your forearm for 15 minutes every day to get your vitamin D to look after your brain. There you go. Didn't know you were going to learn that today, did you? All right. Amaranth, it says it's better for pie crusts and tortillas. And again, you mix with other gluten-free flours. Brown rice flour is high in protein and fiber, which again is good for your blood sugar levels. And it also helps with weight loss. And again, use with a combination. Oat flour. Now, Wendy talked about oat flour, you know, oats. And you do have to be very careful. You can buy gluten-free oats. But they usually come from America, so you can get those, and again use that with other gluten-free flours. And oat flour can make your end product a bit moister. Chickpea flour, Besan flour, garbanzo flour is a plant-based one, obviously, and used often in falafels and flatbreads. And coconut flour. Now, it has a really nice taste, but you have to be very careful with coconut flour, because it absorbs a lot of liquid. So for every quarter cup of coconut flour, you need to have 1 egg. So you would, and if you were just substituting it to instead of an all-purpose flour, you would do a quarter of the amount of the coconut flour. Now, I haven't played with that, but that's the research that that I found online. What someone did, one of the ladies said was, mix your egg yolks with the coconut flour and whip the egg whites and fold in to make it a lighter batter, if you like. All right, so that's my little bit of research on the different flours. I did actually go on to another team's, someone was doing a pizza class a couple of weekends ago, and I went on to that and watched them, and I've got a whole sheet with the lady's name on it, so I'm not just stealing. Which I'm sure she's more than happy to share, with gluten-free flour blends, and the fact that you have grains and you have starches. And so you tend to generally blend the two rather than having all the starches. So like I was saying earlier, with your corn flour, you don't just use corn flour, you mix it with other flours. All right, so I'll send all of that stuff out to you. We need to go back to Wendy so we can have a look at her beautiful, yes, we will go back to Wendy first. We're going to look at her rolls. You're mute, Wendy.
There we go. Okay, everyone hear me now? So these are the ones that are baked just now. So
oh, wow.
See, one log, they are still quite hot, so I may not be able to hold it for long. But that's amazing. Amazing. It's really held its shape well, and it's risen and it smells delicious. These are the rolls I made earlier this morning. And I'll just break so you can see the consistency inside. So you can see, whoops, that it is. Yeah. I mean, they do feel a little bit dense, but the flavour is amazing. Got a little bit of a nutty taste to it, but you can just see the air pockets in there as well. It's delicious to eat. So yeah, definitely a hit in our house, this recipe.
Fantastic. Thank you, Wendy. And thank you so much for spending time with us this afternoon and showing that.
Yeah, no, I've loved every minute. Thanks, Maddie.
All right. So I'm just going to quickly show you the crackers. So here they are, and I've got a row of them here. So this is how they come out, and you can just literally snap them off into that shape by using that cracker roller. I'll pop a link to that in the email as well. But they're really tasty as well. That's the good thing about a lot of this gluten-free bread. You know, people go, oh, you know, it's really hard to get a good gluten-free bread. It's having a bit of play around, but it's often really tasty as well. It's, you know, it's got more. I agree with Wendy what she said about the rolls. They are a little bit dense, so you don't need to have two. You can have one. You know, but they have a really nice flavour. All right. So, anyone got any questions? No? All right, well, the next class we are doing is Thursday week on the 31st. We're going to do Easter goodies. I'm going to have a play with chocolate between now and then. And Irene's going to do, so what she did the bread on bread dough on Thursday and gave lots of tips about that, but she's talked about a different type of dough that she's going to use with making the hot cross buns, which makes them last, makes them fresher for longer. So she's going to use that, which will be, I think it'll be really interesting to see that. And she said she did it for her styreki, her Greek Easter bread last year, and it lasted for a week, whereas normally, you know, after a day or two, it's getting a bit stale. So that's going to be really interesting to see. And yeah, I'm going to have a little play with chocolate, seeing as, you know, Easter and chocolate seem to be synonymous. All right, if no one's got any questions. Oh, thank you, Leanne. I'll pop all the recipes in the email as well. And we love having you here. Thank you all for coming. And we look forward to seeing you hopefully on the 31st. Bye, enjoy your afternoon.